Hello.
Hi there.
So I am Gráinne from I Am Healing, and you are.
Antoinette McQueenie from Antoinette McQueenie Homeopathy. And
You are watching the weekly
so,
dose.
yeah, welcome to the weekly dose, watching it or listening. And
Listen,
we're kind of loose with the term weekly.
just a bit.
So our time is a little bit more elastic than other people's. But I think today we're going to start a conversation about perimenopause. And there's so much we can say about this. And we are going to say a lot about it, but we'll just get
Yeah,
started on it today.
yeah,
And you were telling me about a story of
yeah.
somebody you met
So
recently.
recently, and I don't know if this person will be listening. So if you are, hi. But I was in a situation where I met someone who I didn't know, and we were having the crack together, and we were sitting chatting, and I think she's a little bit younger than me, so we'll say mid 40s or early 40s. And she was saying how she had fibroids and the doctors were leaving her on the pill. And she was like, I really don't want to be on it, but I guess I have no choice at this stage. And I could feel every bit of me kind of going, oh. And I just quietly said, well, there are other options. Because she also kind of was like, there is nothing else that I can do. I have these fibroids. I'm not ready. The surgery isn't happening. I have no other options. And I was like, well, there is other options. And she picked up on it straight away and went, well, like what? I was like, well, let me tell you. So, and there unraveled the story. But the first point that really struck me, Anto, was women think they've only two options with the medical word, or maybe three. One is the pill or the contraceptives and the various forms that comes in, and the second one is HRT.
Yeah.
And genuinely, that is, if you stay in that medium, that is all they can offer you. Whereas a lot of other modalities, homeopathy included, can offer so much more, and without all of the crap that goes with it. So that was what I
Uh,
thought we'd open with.
yeah, I love it. And there's 2 points I want to make there.
Mm.
There's actually three options in the medical arena. So, like I said, it's the contraceptives, it's HRT, and the third one is antidepressants.
Oh, yes.
Yes, because when the first two don't work and you still have symptoms, that's the next, you're obviously depressed. There's obviously something wrong. So we
Yeah,
have both seen women, I'm sure, who are on maybe a
absolutely.
combination of all of those because it doesn't seem to be an issue of just picking one. It is trying everything, throwing everything at it. And the second thing I want to say about that, and we just had a quick chat about it, is a few years ago, like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, women were advised to get off oral contraceptives in their mid 30s. Remember that?
Yeah.
And now, and they were being asked to consider other things. And I had my last baby at 39. I was told, oh, if you need an emergency section, we're going to tie your tubes while you're under. And I said, no, you're not. But they were in some way encouraging women to think beyond oral. I hadn't been on oral contraceptives, but now it seems to be safe and advised to stay on contraceptives for the rest of your life
Yeah. Yeah.
without a break, without coming off it for that inconvenient withdrawal bleed, which isn't a period. We all know that
No.
now that at this stage that isn't a period. It's a side effect of stopping the medication. So that's not even happening anymore. Women
Yeah.
are staying on this and then going on to maybe HRT on top of it,
Yeah.
and maybe
Antidepressant.
antidepressants.
And funny, it's that was part happened to coincide. I was still in the medical world, and this was around the time I was still on contraceptives, but I was starting to explore homeopathy. I hadn't started my training yet. And I remember my GP said, oh, you're, late 30s. I'm just putting it out there that we're going to start considering what your next step after the pill is. And I kind of went, what now? Thinking, what? And it hit me. It was like, why is my whole life medicalized? What is so wrong with the nature of my being that I need intervention all of my life? All of my life. And it hit me like a ton of cement because I thought, I don't see nature as broken. I look at it, all the other things nature does, and I don't see it as broken. Why am I viewed as broken that I need this medicalisation of what should be a natural process, i.e., becoming fertile, having periods, and then ebbing into the crone years of my life and, ovulation ceasing? Why does that need perpetual medicalisation? And it was at that point I started to sit back and go, there's something not right here, that I'm being seen as a problem and my body is being seen as getting it wrong.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. I think there's been a massive push towards, I don't think, I know it, towards HRT, especially. Like we've
Mm.
always had the contraceptives, and then we got
Yes.
we got free contraceptives, and we got free HRT, and it's like get as many women onto this stuff as possible. But the the HRT, remember years ago, people were very wary of HRT because of the risk of strokes, and that's why women were told to come off the pill in their mid 30s as well. It was the risk of strokes,
Yeah.
and other things, other types of cancers. But HRT came back with this fancy new, sexy new rebrand about 3 years ago,
Yeah.
and I think it's to do with the jab. I would put money on it because we both saw huge issues with women's periods after they had that.
Yeah.
So if you have a problem, then you're going to create a solution. If you create the problem in the first place, you have your solution ready to go. And I know
Absolutely.
that's going to get some people a bit annoyed saying that, but that's what we're seeing in practice.
Yeah.
So at the time that, what's his name, Joe Duffy in Ireland ran a 2 week, he ran a program for 2 weeks talking about menopause. And at the same time, he was doing that. Davina McCall was doing it in the UK. And
Yeah.
suddenly everybody was talking about it. And all the
Yeah.
celebs were talking
Yeah.
about how HRT has really benefited them. So it's everywhere. Like
Yeah.
women are just, it's in your face. You can't turn without hearing or seeing somebody talking about HRT.
Yeah. But it's
So
almost like, again, all of that contributes to the idea that, like, this phase of womanhood, perimenopause and menopause, is an illness that needs a pill for it.
yeah,
And that rightly pees the crap out of me, because it's not an illness. Um, the reason so many of us are struggling with it is down to many other reasons, particularly lifestyle and the stresses and strains of how we've lived in the preceding 20 to 30 years. And whereas I think there's almost like this myth that, oh, our poor mothers bore it in silence. I just don't think our mothers suffered the way it's been sold. And again, this may be controversial. I'm aware this may be, a few people will be reacting to this podcast, but um, I just don't. I think the time of this medicalisation of um, our bodies needs to stop.
yeah.
Um,
Few years ago, I gave a talk to a bunch of women in a local women's group, and they were mostly in their 60s and 70s. There was a few in their 50s, and I was talking about menopause, and there was a good crowd there. They weren't making eye contact with me. And at the time, I was thinking, this is really weird. I brought this very taboo subject to these women. And it was only afterwards I was thinking, they were bored. They were just bored. It meant nothing to them. I had a room full of women and I was talking about menopause and things that can happen. And it didn't resonate at all.
wow.
Um, so all this talk about menopause now, and isn't it great we're talking and we're like that our mothers suffered in silence and women have suffered in silence, but now all this talking is kind of creating an expectation that we are going to suffer this awful, awful thing, or when we turn a certain age, we're going to decline
Yeah.
physically and mentally. We're just going to become old overnight. Body isn't able to do what it needs to do, and we need outside help. And it's not.
And
It's not.
let's bring it back to homeopathy in the sense of how we work. All the our lives and as women, we see these symptoms as communication from the body. So the body is having a conversation, and as a homeopath, we sit down and listen. So if you're a teenage girl who suddenly gets very painful periods, we will listen and we will prescribe a remedy that works for that. As a woman, I'm 51 and I'm a month off being in menopause. And any of the symptoms that I got, I recognized. So a big one for me, and I'll just be open about this, was flushing. And I still occasionally get it, but not as bad. But I just realized that my liver has had a lot of stuff, stress, anger, whatever, but also a lot of toxicity. So every time I drank a glass of wine, I'd ring my mother, and my mother would go, "You were drinking." Like, how did she know? And I'd be beetroot red. I'd be beetroot red. Just one. So I actually looked at my lifestyle and thought, you know what? I need to not drink as much. And is that an unreasonable message for my body to be sending to me? That,
Yeah.
hey, hold on, you know. So I cut out the drinking. Not cut it out totally. Caveat to anyone who's seen me out and about. Um, but I cut back on my drinking and I started doing some liver support, and my own homeopath started supporting that. And I got remedies. So it's like all this stage is another conversation that your body is happening. And if you have the right practitioner who will help you understand that language that your body is communicating in, that's where the symptoms are. That's what the messages are. And that's what needs answering and supporting and holding.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
very
You're
ranty,
absolutely
wasn't
right.
it?
It was a bit, but it's good. Do you feel better now?
Feel better for that. Do you want to
And it's
have a
also
rant?
it's thrown me from what I was going to say. Oh my God. Um, what you said about your liver. You said you had to start supporting your liver. And I just want to add another bit to that. What worked before doesn't work anymore when we get into our 40s and 50s. And getting, surviving on 4 hours sleep, we can't do that anymore. Eating junk food, we cannot do that anymore. Not getting enough exercise, can't do that anymore. Stress, can't do it
No.
anymore. And yeah, like you said, the body creates symptoms, and it's not something that happens overnight. And I've had women say to me, the minute I turned 40, I went into perimenopause. And you probably didn't.
No.
It
No.
doesn't happen. There are signs, there are little whisperings. Please, please, please get more sleep. Please reduce your stress. Please come off contraceptives. And we tend to go like that until those symptoms are screaming in our ears. And we all do that. I've done that.
Absolutely.
That's natural because we carry on as women, we're looking after everybody else. And my thing with perimenopause, if I was to say there was one thing, was huge anxiety,
Mm.
awful anxiety, and these terrible intrusive thoughts. What if this happens? What if that happens? And but I realized the Christmas before last, it was particularly bad. And then I had to sit down and talk to myself, and a bit like your story, what was happening more at Christmas? I was drinking more. I had so much more sugar and alcohol in my system, and that's what happened. It just increased anxiety. Of course it did, because it made me feel great in the beginning. Then you're on a massive downer the next day,
Yeah.
and the anxiety was through the roof. So when I sorted that out,
Yeah.
that was that was fine. Um, I would get occasional flushes sometimes before my period. Uh, They don't bother me though. They bother my husband more because he wakes up. I don't wake up with them because I'm on liver supports. I have a hormone support remedy here on my desk, and anytime I'm in here, if I feel I need it, I take it. This doesn't have to be an awful time in your life, and I hope we can get to talk about that more in the next few weeks,
Yeah.
and how we
Yeah.
can support ourselves
Yeah,
in
I
this
think I
time.
think we'll stay with this subject for a little
Yeah.
while, but I think the message really from today's one is that this is not a time to be suffered, and there are other options
Yeah.
beyond the medical model.
Absolutely. It's not a sickness, it's not a disease, it's an opportunity to look at your life and make some changes before we go into the wonderful second half of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a note to end on. Till next week.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.